Carl Jung warned us about a deep aspect of the human psyche that, while being a source of creativity and potential, can become a risk to our mental and spiritual health. He called this pattern Puer Aeternus, the eternal youth. This archetype, rooted in myths and ancestral stories, represents the spirit of eternal youth, full of dreams, grand aspirations, and an idealistic view of life. However, as Jung pointed out, when we allow ourselves to be dominated by this energy without balancing it, it can trap us in an endless search for the ideal, taking us further away from reality and maturity. In the contemporary world, Jung's warning is more relevant than ever. We live in an era that celebrates youth, freedom, and the rejection of responsibilities. This glorification of eternal youth is everywhere, from social media to cultural narratives that encourage us to seek a life without limits or commitments. And while these ideals may be inspiring, Jung reminds us that the pure also carries a shadow, a refusal to grow, face the complexity of adult life, and accept the challenges of individuation. Spiritually, the pure archetype confronts us with an essential truth about the human soul, the desire to fly high, but without the solid foundation to sustain the flight. Jung saw this pattern as a reflection of the internal struggle between the desire to transcend and the need to anchor oneself. The wisdom he offers is clear. To become whole, we must integrate the creative energy of the pure with the maturity of the senex, the wise old man. This balance is essential for a spiritually rich and emotionally stable life. The Puer Aeternus archetype is deeply rooted in the collective unconscious and finds its origins in myths and stories that span centuries. It personifies the essence of eternal youth, the dreamer, the idealist, the one who is driven by inspiration and the promise of something greater. In mythology, we can see it represented in figures like Icarus, who flies too high with his wax wings, or Peter Pan, the boy who refuses to grow up. These stories not only enchant but also carry a warning about the dangers of staying trapped in psychological childhood. On the other end, we find the senex, the wise old man who represents maturity, stability, and wisdom acquired through experience. While the pure constantly seeks new horizons, the senex is grounded, pragmatic, and willing to face the limitations of life. These two archetypes form an essential counterpoint in the human psyche. The pure brings creative energy and vision, while the senex provides structure and discernment. Jung emphasized that the balance between these forces is crucial. Without the lightness of the pure, life can become rigid and stagnant. But without the grounding of the senex, we can get lost in fantasies and escapism. The pure, however, plays a vital role in the spiritual journey. It reminds us not to lose touch with the enchantment of life, to dream, and to seek something beyond the material. On the journey of self-knowledge, the pure is the initial spark that leads us to explore the mysteries of existence. But this energy needs to be guided and balanced by the senex, who helps transform inspiration into concrete action. This interplay of opposites is not something to be resolved but integrated. True maturity arises when we allow the pure and the senex to coexist in harmony, letting our dreams be informed by wisdom and our responsibilities guided by a larger vision. It is in this space of balance that we find the potential for a meaningful and spiritually rich life. In the modern world, the Puer Aeternus archetype is more visible than ever. We live in an era where technology offers constant distractions and infinite possibilities, creating the perfect environment for the manifestation of the child-man. Social media, virtual games, and instant consumption give us the illusion of freedom and escapism but often take us away from the reality of our responsibilities. The contemporary child-man often finds himself in a state of procrastination. He postpones important decisions, avoids long-term commitments, and fears the inherent limitations of adult life. The virtual world, with its promises of endless connection and entertainment, becomes a refuge where he can escape the complexity of the real world. But ironically, this same refuge can lead to a profound sense of emptiness and disconnection. Moreover, there is a growing aversion to responsibilities. The demands of adult life, taking care of oneself, maintaining meaningful relationships, contributing to the community, can feel oppressive to someone trapped in the pure archetype. This resistance, however, is not just practical, it is also spiritual. It reflects a disconnection from one's own essence, a refusal to accept the call to grow and integrate the challenges of life. The cost of this is high. Spiritual disconnection deepens as we seek satisfaction in superficialities and avoid confronting our pains and limitations. The creative energy of the pure, which should be a force of renewal and inspiration, is diverted into cycles of endless search for external stimuli, leaving little room for introspection or true transformation. This scenario is not just individual, it reflects a collective trend. As a society, we are feeding the pure, celebrating freedom and youth, but neglecting the value of commitment, effort, and maturity. The result is a culture lacking roots, where many feel lost amid an excess of possibilities. Recognizing this dynamic is the first step toward transforming it. The child man needs to realize that while freedom and creativity are essential, it is in the acceptance of limitations and facing challenges that he will find a deeper sense of purpose and connection. The shadow aspects of the Puer Aeternus archetype emerge when the energy of eternal youth dominates the psyche without being balanced by maturity. Although the pure is a source of inspiration and vision, when left unintegrated, it can create a cycle of emotional dependency, difficulties in relationships, and an inability to handle the commitments of adult life. This shadow not only limits us but also prevents us from accessing our deeper potential. Living under the influence of this archetype can lead to an incessant search for external validation and immediate satisfaction. The pure, by rejecting the limitations of reality, often refuses to take responsibility, seeking only pleasure, novelty, and escape. This can manifest as emotional dependence in relationships, where there is an expectation that the other will fill the internal void or relieve the burden of responsibilities. But this type of dynamic is rarely sustainable, resulting in frustrations, ruptures, and feelings of isolation. The lack of commitment is another dark consequence. Whether in work, relationships, or personal projects, the pure avoids definitive choices. He fears being trapped by decisions that would limit his freedom or confront him with the reality of the effort required to achieve something meaningful. This aversion can create a cycle of procrastination and self-sabotage, leaving behind a trail of missed opportunities. Spiritual maturation, according to Jung, requires that we face these shadows. The suffering that arises when confronting reality, our limitations, fears, and responsibilities, is not something to be avoided, but a catalyst for growth. It is in confronting pain that we find the strength to transcend the limiting patterns of the pure and access a fuller dimension of our humanity. The role of suffering in growth cannot be underestimated. It calls us to look inward, to question our choices, and to abandon the illusions that keep us trapped. It is through this process that we begin to integrate the creative energy of the pure, transforming it into a force that works in our favor, rather than against us. This transformation does not mean renouncing dreams or creativity but rather learning to root them in reality. When we accept life's challenges, we discover that the true purpose is not in avoiding pain or seeking only pleasure but in finding balance, meaning, and connection amid the complexities of existence. The relationship between Puer Aeternus and the archetypal mother is a powerful dynamic that can either nurture or imprison the psyche. Jung identified that at the heart of the pure archetype often lies a deep and complex bond with the maternal figure. This relationship, when unbalanced, can hinder emotional and spiritual maturation, keeping the individual in a position of dependency that prevents individuation. The archetypal mother represents nurturing, protection, and care. However, when her energy is excessive or poorly integrated, it can become a force that stifles autonomy and reinforces childish attachment. The Puer Aeternus, under this influence, may develop a tendency to constantly seek this nurturing, refusing to face the challenges of adult life. He may avoid taking responsibility, preferring to remain in the emotional comfort provided by maternal energy, whether in the form of a real relationship or the idealization of security and protection. This dynamic manifests in various areas of life. In the emotional context, the pure may struggle to establish healthy relationships, alternating between dependence and rejection. There is an implicit expectation that the other plays the role of the protective mother, offering unconditional support without demanding growth or change. This creates a cycle of frustration, as no relationship can fully fill this unconscious need. However, the role of the archetypal mother is not just problematic. When balanced, it provides the emotional foundation needed for the individual to explore their independence with confidence. Well-integrated maternal energy nurtures without suffocating, encourages without dominating, and offers security without hindering autonomy. This balance is key to emotional and spiritual independence. To transcend the pure complex, it is essential to balance the nurturing of the archetypal mother with the courage to seek autonomy. This means learning to nurture oneself internally, rather than relying solely on external sources of comfort. It also requires the willingness to confront the fears that accompany freedom and responsibility, understanding that true growth happens outside the comfort zone. The balance between nurturing and autonomy is a key milestone in the maturation journey. It allows the individual to integrate the creativity and energy of the pure with the wisdom and stability of the mature adult, paving the way for a fuller life aligned with purpose. The collective impact of the Puer Aeternus archetype is something that transcends individual experience. When the energy of the pure manifests on a large scale, it shapes not only personal lives but also culture, politics, and social structures. What we see today is, in many ways, a society immersed in the shadows of the pure, celebrating freedom without limits, seeking immediate pleasures, and often neglecting the maturity required to face global and intergenerational challenges. This epidemic of the child man is reflected in a culture that often values appearance over substance, prioritizes instant consumption over long-term investment, and avoids difficult decisions in favor of temporary solutions. In a world shaped by this energy, leaders often adopt postures that echo the pure, promising grand changes without the practical grounding to implement them. This creates a dangerous gap between idealism and reality, leading to disillusionment and a lack of trust in institutions. Intergenerational impacts are also significant. When one generation is dominated by the energy of the pure, the next may inherit not only the benefits of creativity and innovation but also the challenges of a lack of structure and responsibility. Children who grow up in an environment where maturity is rarely modeled may struggle to find their own balance between dreaming and acting. Spiritually, this collective alienation reflects a disconnection from the soul. As we move away from practices that promote introspection, balance, and self-knowledge, we become more susceptible to superficiality. The energy of the pure, which could be a creative force, transforms into escapism and evasion, making it difficult to do the internal work necessary for spiritual growth. However, awareness of this collective dynamic is a vital step toward transformation. Jung believed that individual work with archetypes has a greater impact than we realize. When an individual begins to integrate their shadow, confront their fears, and balance the pure with the senex, they not only transform their own life but also contribute to the evolution of collective consciousness. Recognizing the collective impacts of the Puer Aeternus challenges us to take responsibility, both in our own lives and in our communities. It is a call to reassess what we value as a society and to create a balance between the creative freedom of the pure and the structured wisdom of the senex, preparing the ground for a more stable and spiritually aligned future. The path to overcoming the challenges of Puer Aeternus and achieving spiritual maturity is rooted in the process of individuation, as described by Carl Jung. Individuation is the journey to becoming who we truly are, integrating the different aspects of the psyche into a whole. It is a process that requires the courage to confront the shadows, discipline to abandon illusions, and commitment to live authentically. This path transforms the restless energy of the pure into a mature creative force, aligned with the wisdom of the senex. Spiritual maturity begins with accepting the limitations of life. The pure, in his constant search for freedom, tends to avoid anything that seems to restrict him. But true freedom is not the absence of limitations. It is the ability to find purpose and meaning within them. Spiritual maturity teaches us that the limitations of reality are not barriers but masters. They challenge us to grow, to adapt, and to deepen our understanding of the world and ourselves. Spiritual practices play a crucial role in this process. Meditation, for example, helps us observe our escapist tendencies and cultivate the patience necessary to face the present moment. Reflective journaling allows us to explore the internal patterns of the pure and question the narratives that sustain his influence. Practices such as symbolic rituals or rites of passage can also connect us with the depth of the transformation we seek, providing a structure to transcend old patterns. The integration of the energy of the pure with that of the senex is the key to balanced growth. This does not mean renouncing dreams or creativity, but learning to manifest them with the wisdom that only maturity can offer. The senex provides the structure for the pure's ideas to take form in the real world, while the pure brings inspiration and renewal to the senex's discipline. Together, they create a harmonious cycle of creation and fulfillment. This journey is neither linear nor easy, but it is deeply rewarding. Each step on the path of spiritual maturity brings us closer to a more authentic and meaningful life, where we are able to embrace our wholeness, light and shadow, freedom and responsibility, youth and wisdom. The absence of rites of passage in modern society is one of the factors contributing to the dominance of the Puer Aeternus archetype. In many ancestral cultures, rituals marked the important transitions of life, from childhood to adolescence, from youth to maturity, and from adulthood to the wisdom of old age. These moments symbolized not only a change of phase but also a symbolic death of old patterns and a rebirth into new responsibilities and perspectives. Today, these rituals are largely absent. Without these markers, many remain trapped in the energy of the pure, without a structure to guide them toward maturity. This cultural gap leaves many individuals navigating the turbulent waters of growth, without the tools or support necessary to integrate the wisdom that these transitions should bring. Rites of passage had transformative power because they involved both the psyche and the community. They provided a space where the old identity was left behind, allowing a new identity to emerge. The absence of these practices in modern society means that often, there is no clear moment to abandon psychological childhood and embrace the responsibilities and challenges of adult life. Nevertheless, we can create our own rites of passage. They do not need to be elaborate or traditional, but they must be intentional and symbolic. An example might be setting aside time for deep reflection during times of transition, such as changing jobs, facing a personal challenge, or completing an important milestone. Simple rituals like writing letters to oneself, performing guided meditations, or even creating symbolic ceremonies in groups can help mark these changes. Spiritual practices such as retreats, fasts, or introspective journeys can also serve as modern rites of passage to facilitate maturation. These moments help us disconnect from external distractions and reconnect with our essence, promoting internal growth and transformation. The return of rites of passage, even in adapted forms, is essential to help individuals and communities move beyond the imbalanced influence of the pure. They provide the necessary structure for us to move with intention and purpose along the journey of life, allowing each phase to be lived with depth and meaning. The hero's journey, as described by mythologists like Joseph Campbell, offers a powerful metaphor for transcending the Puer Aeternus archetype and achieving psychological and spiritual maturity. This journey is universal, present in myths, stories, and narratives across all cultures, and reflects the internal experience of facing challenges, confronting fears, and emerging transformed. The first step on this journey is to accept the call to adventure. For the pure, this call is the need to confront his own immaturity, dependencies, and fears. It is a moment of choice, to continue living in a cycle of escapism and procrastination or to face the uncomfortable truths that lead to growth. This step requires courage, for it represents the beginning of a deep transformation, where the illusions of eternal youth begin to give way to reality. Along this journey, the hero must face what Jung called the symbolic death. To transcend psychological childhood, it is necessary to leave behind old patterns and beliefs that no longer serve our purpose. This symbolic death can be painful, for it forces us to abandon the comfort zones that have defined our identity until then. But it is precisely in this space of loss that rebirth becomes possible. The confrontation with the pure is not just a psychological challenge, it is also spiritual. It calls us to integrate the lessons of our fears and failures, recognizing that they are teachers in the process of individuation. Every obstacle on the hero's journey is an opportunity to develop inner strength, self-compassion, and wisdom. As the hero progresses, he begins to access internal resources that were hidden: courage, creativity, and resilience. These resources allow him to return to the world with a new perspective, capable of balancing the freedom and vision of the pure with the wisdom and responsibility of the senex. It is in this balance that we find true maturity, one that embraces both the challenges and joys of life. The hero's journey teaches us that the transcendence of the pure is not a final destination but an ongoing process. It is a reminder that, by confronting our shadows and integrating our rejected parts, we become not only more mature but also more complete, living a life in harmony with our essence and purpose. Carl Jung's warning about the Puer Aeternus is, above all, a call to transformation, both individual and collective. It invites us to look within and ask, where am I trapped in the energy of the eternal youth? Am I avoiding growth, fearing responsibility, or running from my shadows? These reflections are not easy, but they are essential for those who wish to transcend psychological childhood and live a fuller and more authentic life. The integration of the Puer and the Senex is the model for a balanced existence. It is not about abandoning the dreams and creative energy of youth, but channeling them in a way that is sustained by the stability and wisdom of maturity. It is in the dialogue between these two archetypes that we find the potential for a spiritually rich life, where ideals are transformed into meaningful actions and challenges are faced with courage and discernment. Collectively, this transformation is equally urgent. A society dominated by the Puer risks perpetuating cycles of superficiality, escapism, and lack of purpose. But when individuals choose to face their shadows and seek maturity, they create waves of impact that are reflected in their communities and in the world. This choice is a contribution to a future more grounded in lasting values and a sense of connection with the whole. Now, I ask, where do you find yourself on the journey between the Puer and the Senex? Do you recognize areas in your life where the energy of the Puer still dominates? What steps can you take today to balance this energy with the wisdom and responsibility that the Senex offers? These questions do not require immediate answers but are invitations for deeper introspection. If this content has brought something meaningful to your reflection, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Share this material with anyone you believe may benefit from this message and comment below with your experiences and thoughts. Your words may inspire others to embark on their own journey of self-knowledge and transformation. Remember, the balance between freedom and responsibility, between dream and reality, is what allows us to live an authentic and meaningful life. May your journey be marked by the courage to grow, the wisdom to integrate, and the strength to become who you truly are.